Good morning and welcome to Banners, Backgrounds, and the Beginning of the Year Blueprint. Try to say that 5 times fast. So we're going to look at several different things this morning. Working with some banners so you guys can get ready for the beginning of the school year. We're going to look at using backgrounds in Google Slides so you can create draggables for your students and have different activities. And then I just have several different activities that you can use at the beginning of the school year. So um, so I'm sharing my screen. You guys should see the custom banner sizes. These are all in pixels. So be aware that that is all pixels. I'm going to show you guys how to be able to change your page settings from inches to pixels and so forth. And we're going to do some of the setting things as we're going through. So I'm also going to share this with you guys in the chat. So you have all those dimensions yourself. It is just an image. That's how I got it. Where'd it go? Hold on one second. If it was a PDF, it'd be a lot easier to share, but it's not. So just bear with me and you can have that image and save it yourself so you have it. So we're not going to look at all of these. We're going to look at some of them. Our big two that we're going to look at is for our Google Classroom and our Google Forms, because those are typically the things that you are going to use at the beginning of the school year. If you are using Google Sites, the Google Sites is on there as well, so you can use that. And then if you didn't know, Flipgrid has now changed to just Flip. So if you see that in some correspondence and things like that, they're talking about the same thing, but you can create banners for your Flipgrid as well. So I'm going to move this out of the way so you guys can see some things. So we're going to look at things like creating regular banners so you can add your Bitmojis and things like that for your Google Classroom and or for a Google Form. I'm going to show you two different ways. We are going to look at still banners. So those are just ones that you're going to design. They're not going to have any movement. Then we're also going to look at banners that have animations. So I've created these two different ways. One, I used Google Drawings. So a lot of people forget about Google Drawings, but it is there and it saves everything right into your Google Drive, which is nice. And then you can actually use the Google Drawings now in any of your other Google applications. And then we're also going to look at creating them in a Google slide and adjusting the size of our slide in order to accommodate a banner. So let's look at a Google drawing first. So this is the one that I just created. Now you can see here, I have this black box. You don't have to include that, but I wanted to show you an example. So if you look here, and if you are a strong Google user, you will know that they changed the text from being at the top left, they moved it down to the bottom left. So it is now here. So depending on your banner and what colors your banner has, sometimes it's hard to read the text. So if you want to include a box for that text information, you can. And without it, it just looks like this. And you can see it kind of grays out the banner itself anyways, so you can see it. But if you just want it to stick out a little bit more, you can see that's just a regular banner that they have in Google Classroom. And then where was my other one? I think it's this one. You can see it, they gray it out so you can kind of see everything clearly. So we're going to look at our Google Drawings first. So the first thing we're going to do is from our drive. If you don't know how to get to your Google Drawings, it is under your new, it is under more, and your Google Drawings is right there. So when you're creating a Google drawing from scratch, you're going to have the scratch board here. So you're going to want it the specific size based on what the dimensions for the header is. So we're going to create this for Google Classroom. Google Classroom and Google Forms are exactly the same. So that's kind of what I want to talk about is if you create one for one, you can use it in both. But it is 16 by 400. So you can try to adjust it yourself here this way, but it's much easier to go into File and Page Setup and then look at the custom setup. So when we're at the custom setup, okay, by default, I think it's on widescreen. But when we go to custom, you'll see that it defaults to inches. So we want to make sure that we are changing this to pixels. So when we're looking at the pixels, it was 1600 by 400. So I can just type that in there. And then if you switch to inches, you can see it adjusts it accordingly, but we're just going to leave it on pixels because that is what that image that I shared with you has everything listed as. So once we click on that, I'm going to click apply and it's going to adjust my banner. So you can see here, this is my workspace that I have to add my images and so forth. Okay. So you'll see that it's and I hope you can see this, and maybe with the screen share, you might not be able to, but the background is like a checkerboard. So that means if I save this as a PNG, that would be a transparent background. So when you see that checkerboard like background like that, that allows it to be transparent. So when we are downloading things, you have the option to download as a JPEG or a PNG. A JPEG would automatically give it a white background. So from corner to corner, if I didn't have many pictures or images, things like that, anything that was not covered that's in the checkerboard would become white. If I do a download and I download it as a PNG, anything that I would still see as the checkerboard would come through as transparent. So like if you're putting this into a Google slideshow, that's where you can kind of, overlay different images and so forth. So that's why you see the checkerboards. So when we're in here, we can, add any of our backgrounds, Bitmojis, things like that. I'm just going to find something real quick. Search the web. Let's do, and even if you do banners, a lot of times they're adjusted for a banner width, so they're wider than they are tall, which are nice to work with. But even sometimes working with banner sizes, you still have to crop some of it out or adjust it accordingly to the size of the banner we need for classroom. So if I go into my math banners, you can see there's all kinds of different ones in here. I'm just going to take all these numbers. That looks like a good one. So I'll click on that one. I'm going to insert it. And you can see it doesn't completely cover it. So I'm just going to stretch it to my corner. I'm going to try to get it to my corner. Now, if I come here, so just remember, just like any image, if I start stretching it from the top and bottom or the sides, it might distort my image. So just be careful stretching it across. In this case, it doesn't matter, but if you have an actual picture or something like that, it might be a little tougher. Then if you want anything else on here, if you want your Bitmoji. So we're going to put the little apple on here. And remember, when you're creating this, you do not want anything in that bottom left-hand corner. So over here in the bottom left-hand corner is where the title of your classroom is going to go. So you want to make sure that you're not putting pictures and things like that over there. So I can add any of my shapes, any of my tools that I have in Google Drawings, I can put in this banner. So if I want my little call out, and I'm going to say, welcome to class. I'm going to move this. And you can just double click on callouts. I don't know if you know that. You can double click and you can start typing, but it automatically centers it for you where within the call out, I always like to make a separate text box and put on there so I can adjust the text as I need. So welcome to okay. So, and I'm not going to go in, and spend tons of time doing all the formatting and so forth, but I do want to do a little so you guys can see. Let's get it centered here. Adjust the color of that. Okay, so this is my banner. So now it's done. So I have it saved. So if I go back into my my drive, let's get it updated here a sec. There's my banner. So again, I can use this in a Google slide. I can use it in a Google Doc, things like that. So I can pull my images um, from my drawings. But now I am ready to use this in a banner for my Google Classroom. So it will not allow you when you are trying to customize. Oops, let me switch back to my new one. When you are trying to customize your banner, it only allows you to select a photo here from what they already have, or you can upload a photo. And you'll notice when you are uploading a photo, it is looking for it from your computer. So it can't even be an image from the web. It has to be one from your computer. So if you found something on the web or if you're making something in drawings, you have to download it first so it's on your computer. So I'm going to come back. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to come back here and I am going to download this. So now, like I said, with this, because I took up the whole banner width, it doesn't matter to me, JPEG or PNG. But if I just had without this, if I did the PNG, all of this is just going to be transparent. Okay. Or if I saved it as a JPEG, all of this where the checkerboard is would be white. Let me bring that back. So now I'm ready to download. I'm going to download mine as just a JPEG. And here it is. Okay. So now I'm going to go into my new class. I'm going to click on customize. And I'm going to upload my photo. So select my photo from my computer, or you can drag and drop it from your computer. So we'll find my downloads. And here it is. And then you'll see, even though when it brings it in, I still need to adjust the area that I would like to use for my banner. So even though it says 16 by 400, I can adjust this a little bit. I can go from corner to corner if I want all that space, or if I want it a little bit smaller, I can adjust it as well. So again, this is up to you how much of that extra space that you want for your banner. And this comes in handy when you do the animated ones like I had previous, because when you're making your GIF, it has everything on the screen and you want to cut that out. So I am going to save this or select this one, and you'll see it's going to bring it up. Then you do have more ways to customize Google Classroom. So if you haven't been in, or towards the end of the year, you're like, I see new things, but I haven't looked at them. You can select your theme color. So if you want every class to be a different color, you can do that. It used to just look at the banner and it used to adjust the colors based on what was in the banner. Now you can pick the colors that you want. So purple's my favorite color, so I'm going to click on purple. I'm going to hit save, and then you can see all my buttons and things like that have the purple color to them. So you can see it kind of darkens the bottom, so including my Bitmoji over here, but it allows you to then be able to see the name of the classroom. So just be aware of that. And if you're like, nope, I want that box, you can add a box in there to be able to adjust it so that the name goes on that black box. So that's creating a still banner, and that was from a Google drawing. So, and the nice thing with this is no matter if I create it for my classroom, if I come to a Google form, I can also use it in my Google form. So if I wanted to change this, I'm going to remove what I have. I'm going to upload a new one. Sorry, I forgot to shut my phone off. I'm going to bring that up. Here's my banner. And Google Forms does the same thing that a Google Classroom does. It tries to automatically adjust the colors to match the banner. So once I hit done, it will adjust. Okay, and you can see it picks different, but I do have the option. Maybe I want the bright pink and so forth. So I can do that. And again, just like Google Classroom, if you haven't been in recently, you have more formatting options where you can actually format the fonts. You have all fonts now versus just those half a dozen that they had before. And you can adjust the fonts for the header, the questions, and then the text. So all of those are listed there. But again, creating one banner, you can use it in multiple places. So, your kids can see it over and over, even if it's just, a simple Bitmoji banner, with you and your name, and you're going to use it multiple places. Okay. Any questions with creating a still banner or using Google Drawings? Okay. Let's look at Google Slides. So looking at Google Slides, this is how, and you can do this multiple ways. So you can create it using animations like I did here because I just had a short word. So each of these is animated. So if I look at my animation, it's, I wanted them to fly down from the top. The other option is to create multiple slides and you can duplicate over and over again. So that is up to you how you want it to come across. But the key to making it look animated is that you're actually going to do a screen recording. And I use Screencastify because it's easily accessible. Once you do the Screencastify, then it allows you to save it as the animated GIF. Okay. So first thing we're going to do. So let me get to a new slideshow. And of course, our slide is way too big. Okay. So I want to adjust this so it fits my banner. So you can do one of two things. You can actually just bring in your banner. So I can insert the image and bring in my banner that I just saved. So once I do that, it's going to bring it over. So that's the size of the banner. And then I can just ignore all the other stuff. Or the other thing that I can do is go into File and Page Setup and change this to my custom, just like I did for my Google Drawing. Change it to my pixels and change it to 1600 by 400. Okay. And then now in this case, and I'm going to change my layout so it's blank. In this case, then I can insert my image. I did it first, so it adjusted the size. And then now when I bring it over, it should be full width. Okay. So those are a couple different ways that you can work with your banners. So I'm going to use this one as we're working here. And I'm just going to do some fun drop-ins like that math class like I did before. So again, you can do it one of two ways. One, by having it each animated using your animate tool, or by duplicating your slide. So if you duplicate your slide, you don't really get any of those animated effects like flying from the top or dissolving or zooming in or whatever it might be. They just appear. So I'm just going to do it that way first so you guys can see that. So I'm going to start with creating just a text box. And I'm going to type in my M for math. And of course, you can't see that on the background. So first, I'm going to make this really large so you guys can see this. And then I'm going to adjust my color. And let's go with the bright pink so you guys can see that. Don't like that one. Let's do these. Okay. So here's my first one. So now what I'm going to do is, in order to give it like that animated look, I'm going to duplicate my slide. So I'm going to say duplicate. So everything is exactly the same. And I just did that by right clicking and going to duplicate slide. So now in this case, now I'm going to put in an A. Oops. And we're going to extend it this way. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say duplicate. And then I'm going to put in the T. And same thing. So sometimes, depending on how you want it to look, duplicating is sometimes easier than adding the animation to each of them, but that's completely up to you. Okay. So I got my 4. So I have my 4 slides. That's it. And then it's going to keep repeating itself. And if you want a blank one at the beginning, you can always start with a blank one just by having nothing here. And then it gives that little gap in between. Okay. So I have 5 slides. So now how do I get this to be animated? Because if I download this right now, you can see I can download it as a JPEG. So I can create my banner right from here, and it doesn't have to be animated. So I can download the current slide as a JPEG or a PNG. So same concept as using my Google Drawings, but it doesn't allow me to animate or from here or record it to make it an animated GIF. So I have to run my slideshow, but in order to record my slideshow, I have to use something to do a screen recording. So like I said, I'm going to use Screencastify. So once I click on Screencastify, I'm going to do the desktop recording, because once I click on my slideshow, it's going to open in a different tab. So I can't use my browser tab. So I want to make sure I use desktop recording. I don't need the webcam on because I don't need to see myself, and I don't need the recording. So I don't need any background noise. So I have that turned off. I give myself some time in order to be able to click on slideshow and be ready to start clicking to go through my animations. So I have given myself 5 seconds. So I'm going to record, click on my, oh, I want to record that screen. Sorry, that popped up on a different one. So it's asking what screen I want to share. So now it's going to start recording. Okay, so as I'm recording, I'm just going to tap the mouse so it comes through, so it looks like it's animated, and then I'm going to stop it. So when you're like, oh, well, that's going to have all that extra space. And did I record the completely wrong screen? I did. I am so sorry. Let me try this again. Let's throw that one away. I thought I clicked on the right screen. Okay, let's try this again. Record. Okay, so now I'm going to stop. And then hopefully I recorded the correct screen this time. There we go. And so it looks like it's animated. So, but you're like, oh, I see the menu down there and I see you clicking the mouse and so forth. We don't care about that. So it doesn't really matter. We're going to blank all that stuff out. So we're so used to sharing our videos, putting them in Google Classroom, doing different things like that. but instead we are going to export. So we are going to go to export as a GIF. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to ask me my size. And of course, I do want to get it as close to my size as possible. Okay. And you're going to see it's going to be a little off because it had recorded the entire screen versus just the banner size. So I'm going to say export. This is going to take a second because it's a larger file, but you're going to see when we put it into our classroom that I'm going to be able to pick and choose the area that I want. So as it's exporting, it takes a few seconds, we'll say a minute, to get it exported. Once it's ready for export, you still have to click on the download button. So it exports it, but it waits for you to download. So you'll see here that this red bar is going to change to a download button. And then once we download it, you can put it wherever you need. You know, I'm just leaving everything right now in my downloads because it's easy to navigate to. So here's my download GIF button. So I'm going to click on that. It's downloading it into my downloads folder, and I'm ready to use it now. So if I go to my new class, okay, you're like, yeah, that one was good, but I, wanted to spice it up with some animation for my kids. I'm going to customize it. I'm going to upload a photo. And I'm going to find that downloaded GIF. And here it is. And then I'm going to say open. And this is where it's going to allow me to select the area. So all that blank black space, I'm going to get rid of. So you can see here, I can go from here to there. And then I'm going to say select. So once I have that selected, it's going to just save the area inside that selection box. And I can still have my same theme. Maybe I want the pink to go with it, and I'm going to save. So it does take a second. It will bring it in, and then it'll start animating. And it's just going to, because it's an animated GIF, it's going to repeat and just keep repeating over and over again. So even if you have something, if you use the animation tool in your Google Slides, and maybe you want the apple spinning or something like that, you can do that. But if you want all of the individual pieces, because this was my banner that I made in drawings, if you want all the individual pieces, make your banner here in Google Slides. Then you have all those individual pieces. Okay, any questions with banners? I'm going to close out of some of these screens. Okay, let's look at some backgrounds. So not only do I want to show you some backgrounds or how there's different ways that you can put items in the background, but I do have some activities that I've seen from some different online courses that I have taken that I'm like, oh, those are great for the beginning of the year, welcoming activities and things like that. So there's a couple different ways that you can get items in the background. So I guess the biggest thing that we want to talk about is if you are using draggables. And what I mean by draggables is that you're going to have the kids be in a Google slide, not in presentation mode, in order to drag and drop items. So if I'm looking at this, okay, so somebody made this. I did not make this, but I am just reusing. So I want the kids to be able to spell the different words. Okay, so I want them to be able to drag and drop the letters, but I don't want them to be able to edit or modify or type in letters and so forth. So again, there are two ways that you can create different things in the background. So this is how this was originally created. So this was the originally created slide. So the kids can click here, they can drag. But if we're working with younger kids, sometimes when they're clicking and dragging, now they're doing this because this was not part of the background. So they're trying to get this back and so forth. So now it looks something like this. And they're going to turn that in because they're like, well, I don't know how to fix that because it's all moving together. So instead of putting everything on the screen, so everything is draggable, what you want to do is actually make an image of your screen so that you can save it and use it in the background. Okay, so how do we do that? So again, this is all the things that are on here. Okay, so I want them to be able to spell cake, which I thought it was funny. They spell it for them. So I did it here with an image. So I want them to spell cake. So, but I don't want them to be able to move any of this stuff. I don't want them to be able to type. So I am actually going to remove the stuff that I don't want that they're going to be able to move. Okay, so this is everything on here that I don't want them to be able to move. I don't want them to move each of the letter boxes. I don't want them to change my directions and so forth. So then what I'm going to do is I am going to say file and I'm going to download the current slide. So notice here it says download the current slide as a JPEG. Okay, so it downloads it, puts it in my downloads, no big deal, it's there. And then if I want to come through and change I put a different image in here, I'm going to do the same thing. Search the, let's see, let's do rake. Okay, and that on there. I don't know why I'm being so picky. So I have that. So I would do the same thing. Now I would right click on it. Oh, sorry, not right click, file, download, and save it as a JPEG. So now I have two of them. So then what I would do is just create a new blank slide. So I'm just going to create new blank. Okay, and you're like, well, how do you get everything on there? And you're not going to insert the image. Even though we saved it as a JPEG, this is not how you're going to insert it, because if you insert it as an image, so say this is the one I just did, the kids can still move this part. So you don't want them to be able to move that. They can't move the individual parts, but you don't want them trying to click and drag and then they're clicking the image that you saved. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your background. So make sure nothing is selected on your slide. So if you have placeholders or whatever, everything has to be deselected. I'm going to go to background and I'm going to say choose image. I'm going to upload my image that I just downloaded. So here's my first one. And it brings it over. Now, it does say to add this to the theme. Okay. I would not suggest adding it to the theme unless you are just using like this border. Because if you add it to the theme, then everyone's going to have the cake on it. And you don't want that on every single one. So I'm just going to say done. So here's my first one. And then I'm going to do that same thing again. I'm going to go to add a blank slide, background, choose my image, and then pick picture number 2. So now I have all these. So now I want to start adding all of my draggable items. So you could have sentences where they're going to drag words in. You can have, noun, adjective, adverb, in the parts of speech, and have them drag it to, different words that you have highlighted in the sentences. So you can do multiple things. Math, they can drag numbers to solve equations. So whatever it might be. But in this case here, where I am doing this one, I am going to use just the letters. So I want to paste them. So I copied them earlier, and then I'm going to hit paste. And there are my letters for that one. And then I would do the same thing for the next one. So again, as the students come in here, they can't click and change any of the text. They can't change the image. The only thing that they could do is drag and drop into the boxes that are put into the background. So compared to this one, where they can click everything and rearrange stuff. So that's one way, especially if you're using things over and over. I know a lot of math things are done in Google Slides. So a lot of the things are similar, and then, the numbers change. So they create it once, how they want it to look, put the equation on there, save it, go change the numbers, save it again, and then they just keep going through there. Okay. So the next thing is, instead of using the image as a background, the other item is to actually put it in the slide master, which now they call theme builder, because nobody's going to ever remember that. So here was a great beginning of the school activity that was shared with me at one of the conferences that I attended. And it was a friend Venn. So just like a Venn diagram, but they're going around and talking to two other people and finding things that are similar. So maybe one thing that they do not have alike would go into each of the other students' circle, something that all three of them share in common, and then maybe just the two of them. So then they can put their images or text and they can drag these around. So maybe, me and Courtney both have dogs. So I'm going to put this over here under dogs because we both have dogs. Maybe all three of us are the youngest child. I am going to move this and have it centered in the middle. But you'll notice that my Venn diagram, I cannot click on it at all. So it doesn't allow me to click and move and change any of that. So only my text and the items that I have added. So how did I get that? So what that is changing the slide master, or like I said, what they call now is the theme builder. So the first thing I want to do is create a blank slide or whatever you have on it. So I'm gonna, in this case, deselect everything. And then I would change my layout to blank. But you can see now my blank one has that Venn diagram on it. So anytime I add a blank one, if I go to add, and change my layout to blank, it's going to have that Venn diagram in it. So how did I do that? I went to view, I went to theme builder, and then what I did was, for my blank slide, I started creating how I wanted my Venn diagram to look. Okay. So all of your same formatting tools are here. So maybe I want to, separate these more, or maybe I want to put squares instead of circles, whatever I decide to do. So I can do, whatever I need here. Now, look at the side. There's all kinds of different layouts. So these are all the different layouts that you would see when you would add a new slide. I am doing this to my blank slide. So on my blank slide only. So then when I close out of this, when I come here, that is part of my background. Okay. So another thing I can do, if I go back in there, I can put some directions in here. So I can say, okay. So the text box, when I close out of this, now becomes something that they can't edit, they can't move. So you can put directions, you can put images, anything like that. And then the kids only have the options to use the tools here, but cannot change the background. Okay. So again, you have the choice of using it as a background image. So creating it, saving it, and then adding it as the background image like these. Or you have the choice to edit the theme builder slide master and put it that way. Okay. And then again, if it's something like like a border. So maybe you have a cute border with letters or numbers or something like that. You can put that in the theme builder in the master and then add any of your extra stuff to the background. So you can do that as well. So you can kind of use both of them together. But a lot of people don't know that that theme builder is there. And if it used to be called Slide Master. So if you've heard that before, they are the same thing. Any questions?
I have a question. How did you get multiple letters of the alphabet on that? Like after you used the A, there was another A underneath it.
Correct. So very simple. So this is one thing that I miss about Smart Notebook, because it used to allow you to duplicate these infinitely. Now you just have to right click and copy it, paste it. So you'll notice every time you paste, it jogs down a little bit. So you just move it right on top of it so you can't see. So when the kid clicks on it, they click and it only takes the top one. So then they drag it and there's still one below it. And you can do that, 2 or 3 times, depending on what your words are going to be. But some vowels will use more than once and things like that. So your Z, I mean, unless you're spelling pizza, you're probably not going to use Z too often, things like that. But just copy and paste and I just use my arrow keys. So to me, I think using my arrow keys is easier, to navigate when you're trying to overlap things. So once I copy and paste it, or you can Control C and Control V. No matter what, it's still going to do that little stagger. So I just use my arrows to move it right on top. Okay. Coins, this works well with coins. So if you're teaching kids coins and, you say, make 37 cents, and you can have all the coins listed and then they, have to drag up the appropriate ones. You can put lines, so all the coins are listed below and then they have to drag it up into the center. So yeah, it's just multiple copy and pastes. Good question. Okay, so a few other activities for the beginning of the year. So we always, depending on what grade level, we have to get to know our kids. So, especially if they're moving between buildings, they're going from elementary to middle school, whatever it might be, we want to get to know them at the beginning of the year. So some fun activities that I saw, of course, we had the friend ven, so you can work on that. Another one that I saw was working with a Google slide and using it as um, using it in a different way. So you can print these out, maybe you're going to put them around the room for open house or whatever, but they're spelling their name and they're, putting their favorites. This one's just a junk food one, any type of junk food that they like that begins with the letter of their name, using clip arts to go along with it. And then, the ability to be able to print it. So what I did here, and this is something to ask the kids, what size is a sheet of paper? So a normal sheet of paper is our 8.5 by 11. So we just customized it, left it in inches and changed our page to 8.5 by 11. So then when you print it out, it's a full sheet of paper. Okay. So don't forget to use those settings, that page setup to use your Google Slides more often, as a page, because when you first create a Google slide, it is not a page size. It's like 10 by, I think it's 10 by 8 or something like that, 10 point something. Um, the other thing that I noticed is QR codes are making a comeback. So you can even print something like this out, have the kids do a recording in like Flip, and put the QR code on here and have that displayed around the room for open house. But it's a way to get everybody to know a little bit about them and so forth. So they can share this or you're posted around the room and so forth. Another activity, and you can even use it with these words as well, but like a welcome back form. So when I'm using my welcome back form, some simple questions, like their name, what do you, and I gave an example here, what do you prefer to be called? Michael might go by Mikey, or he might go by Mike, or sometimes Michaels go by John because they use their middle name. Who knows? So what do they prefer to go by? And then some simple questions. So the kids are answering these. They have no clue. They're just answering it and saying, oh, this is fun. My favorite TV show is this and that and whatever. But then in the background, you can use Autocrat and have a form letter and have these printed out for the first day of school. Or maybe you take a picture, or not first day of school, for open house. Or maybe you take a picture of them and it's going to say, welcome Mikey to our class. And during the summer, whatever their favorite thing was. So you can add those questions as tags in your form letter, and then in Autocrat from Google Sheets, you can bring in that stuff. So I did teach a class on Autocrat, so that should be recorded and available online. But yeah, it's a great way. So the kids are just answering and they have no clue how it's going to turn out. And then you can print all these off for your students and post them around the room. Another one is, again, using Google Slides, using it as a choice board. So as we look, maybe you have an activity in class and you're not sure, or maybe you're like, okay, well, what tool should we use for this? So maybe have Jamboard on there, you have Google Slides on there, maybe something else, and you're going to put up the choice board. In this case, all of these are linked to different tutorials. So, we use this for training purposes. So they're, linked to our handouts or videos or things like that. So you can go over, maybe you're going to say, okay, we're going to talk about 3 of these today. So, you can talk about 3 of them. And then you can even do stuff like, once you're done with them, say, okay, we already talked about this one. So that one's done. So you know that one's been picked. I've seen some people get really into it where, once it's been picked, that they actually dim it out. But, um, so that's a choice board, just using a Google slide. Another way is making the kids have a choice board. And this one was created by somebody else. But this was creating a choice board that they're working on their own. So they're working individually. So the blue is required, and then they have to pick one red and one green. And once they click on it, you can see that it's just linked to the different slides within the slideshow. So then once they click on it, it will go to that slide and it'll say, complete this worksheet, submit a photo of your work. So that's what they had to do for this activity. So they're doing 3 of the 6 different activities. And then each of them just has the home button so that they can get back to the choice board. So again, very simple, but it gives kids that individual learning so they can pick and choose, what they want to do. Okay, any questions, banners, backgrounds, or some beginning of the year activities? Yes. Boom cards is. I think last summer we had a session on boom cards. One of our elementary teachers uses it. Yes, great for drag and drop. So yes, this is all stuff that you're kind of creating on your own. So boom cards is a little different. It does a lot of the customization for you. Any other shares that anybody wants to share? So hopefully everyone learned something and can start off the school year great with using new banners or backgrounds for draggables or some beginning of the year activities. Have a great day.